yeah. Welcome to Audio Mullet. I'm Doug TenNapel. I'm the creator of Earthworm Jim, and I'm here with my co-host all alone, just he and I, Ethan Nicolle, who created Axe Cop. He created Bearmageddon, and now he's kind of he's a washed up writer. He's like washed up at 38.
I'm washed up already? Oh, man.
Yeah, we need to work on your alcoholism more. That's where your second career comes from, is you get writers get slobbering drunk and suddenly they find, I don't know, I think they find the bottom. When they hit bottom, they find new material, a new way.
Yeah, I don't know. How was your work output when you had very young kids?
Oh, it was good. It was good because because I totally neglected them.
You completely neglected. You didn't help out with diapers or anything. I remember you saying that. Yeah,
like Angie, the beloved Miss TenNapel.
You had a nanny. I
had a nanny. The beloved Miss TenNapel didn't work. How bad is it when she doesn't work and she's like, I need a nanny?
with a house full of little kids, I get it.
How lazy.
You just need a break.
How lazy can you be? The dad is an artist, an unemployed artist. I don't have time to change a diaper. She's a stay-at-home mom. She doesn't have time. We need a nanny, and the nanny'd come in and work their ass off. And then we had people mowing our lawn for us and everything. Like, what was there to do? We're the laziest people in the world.
When we moved into our house, we were like, oh, yeah, we're doing this all ourselves. And I mowed our lawn. You know, we never hired babysitters. And it was like, oh, yeah, I was barely getting anything actually done. I was just maintaining the land.
How did Dad do it? He had the push lawnmower. It was all rusty. The blades wouldn't even move. You had to lean into that thing at like a 30-degree angle just to get it to move.
Yeah, you got to tug on that chain to get it going. Prime it and fill it with gas.
Well, that's the engine kind. I mean, my dad had the push kind. You know, like when you pushed the mower. Yeah, and it's like it was all rusty. Like I couldn't even push that thing 3 feet. Dad would mow the lawn and then still go work. You know, that's probably why our dads are so culturally ignorant. They didn't have time to go get all wacky at the movies.
Sit on Twitter.
They would just grind out a job and then come home, grind out a few chores. And their vocabulary is just reduced to like, give me some food. And then they just turn their brain off and watch sports.
Yeah. Yeah. I grew up in a house that... and I'm thankful that I went through this, but I hope I never have to do it again. Our front yard was like, it looked like gigantic steps. Like somebody was going to do some kind of leveling, like change the yard into like 3 or 4 giant levels. And then they just kind of gave up halfway through. So it's just this weird slopes and all covered in grass. Yeah. So it was just multiple, almost vertical hills that you had to mow with your lawnmower.
So you had to mow. How'd you mow it sideways? Did you do?
You just shove it straight up the hill, and it's a heavy engine lawnmower, and it's not just one. It's like all these series of stair step hills where it's about as tall as I am, a little bit taller.
Like mowing the ziggurat, mowing the steps.
So I got my experience working hard there, and also chopping wood. I was the family wood chopper, so we heated our house with wood. So I would be every week. I had to mow that lawn and chop wood.
Was it a 2-hand axe, like a big dwarven broadsword axe?
I used a maul to split the bigger logs up because we'd just get these big old logs, and then I would use the axe to hack them into kindling. I'd make like a bunch of kindling, a bunch of medium-sized pieces, and then some bigger pieces.
So you're like Charles Bronson in The Magnificent Seven when he's chopping wood. He's got the maul thing. He'd smack the top of the wood with the axe and then roll it over backwards, and the weight of the log would split in half. You had a maul, is that like a chisel?
The maul is just like a bigger axe. It's like a really thick. It's just heavier, so it comes down and can really crack through like a big log.
Did you do that reverse mood where you roll it over and spin it on its back, and the weight of the log would split? Did you do that?
I don't remember that. I don't think so.
Watch Magnificent Seven. Charles Bronson. Lays it into the top of a piece of wood.
Special effects.
Yeah, back then it was all ILM.
I got really good at doing kindling though. I would just I could just time it, and I would just go like hack, 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 and just knock all these pieces of kindling off of the wood. Like I was just chiseling it away. Just one piece, one whack, one kindling. Quack,
I wish we had a video of that, because I'll bet if we had an actual video of it, it was
not as cool as it sounds. Yeah.
Yeah. It was little fat Ethan goes out with an axe. He lifts it up once.
I was still little fat Ethan.
He splits one log and then he just goes in the house. I'm tired.
Yeah. No, I got really proud of myself the way that I really got into it. One time I slammed this piece of wood into the log, and I was stuck on my axe, and it bounced up and bounced off my face, and I got a very bloody nose.
And you're like, yeah.
Yeah, bleeding.
Yeah. That's
so
there is something about if you can draw blood or get scratched or whatever and have it not actually, damage you permanently. There is something very sobering about that.
Yeah.
Like getting in a fist fight back then, I think it was a cool thing because they weren't trying to kill you. Like they wouldn't just keep creaming your face after they had you down. They were just trying to beat you, right? So both guys would walk away from it. Nowadays, like you're fighting another guy and you're trusting that he'll know when to stop. And like he probably won't because there's so much hatred. He'll probably just pummel you to a pulp or start knifing you or something. So you can't even fist fight because you have to trust that the other guy has some base set of values.
Yeah. Well, the topic that we chose for today has nothing to do with any of this.
Oh, good. Oh, good, because I was bored.
But that was a fun introduction to nothing. The topic that we're going to talk about today, I know that a lot of our listeners are either curious about the creative field and what the crazy journey go on to get to doing the kind of stuff that we do, but more you, Doug, because you've been much more successful. And I know when I was really trying to make it in this field, I was always curious to hear what is the point A to point B to point C story that you go on. But I was even more interested to hear that from a Christian perspective. Like if you're a person of faith, you care about your values and your faith, and you're making this journey. So we were going to start in your parents' house. You're in your bedroom. You're drawing at your little table. How do you get from there to where you are today? And as a Christian,
how can our audience be a Christian and listen to this show? So first of all, I have to impugn their character, saying, first of all, question just your whole faith statement. So
we are broken. We are broken people.
Well, if they're looking to us for the Christian view, I mean, I am a Christian, but it's like
I'm not saying to give them like advice to follow. I'm just saying this is how it happened for me.
Oh, this is how it happened for me. Okay.
Yeah, we're not giving advice right now. It's just because you know that everybody's journey is going to be different. But when you're sitting there in your house and you're drawing comics and you feel like nobody cares.
Nobody does care.
Nobody does care. That's part of one of the things to learn. Yeah.
Fact. Also, you're a Christian. I would look at not only does nobody care that you're a Christian, but they also hate you.
Yeah.
Fact.
I would always find it fascinating to hear how did you get to there in a real from this step to this step, rather than it always just kind of be like, and then Steven Spielberg noticed me, and then it's like, well, how did he notice you?
Well, I don't know. The other thing is like I'm always about the applicability, because if anyone is looking for career things as a Christian, they're going like, what's the leg up? What's the secret inside move? Then they really don't just want to hear a story that just applies to me. Don't they want something more general? Like maybe this contributed, maybe?
Follow your heart. Follow your heart.
Okay,
Tell the story that you would want to hear.
I'll follow my truth. Because if we were listening to podcasts, we'd be listening to this one.
Right. There is a young me and you listening to this right now. Actually, I don't know if our audience is that young.
I know we're old as hell. I'm 53.
Yep.
And I'm still ready to listen to some other podcast that some other barely Christian, awful example of a Christian guy who barely made it in the arts is laying down his advice. And I'm going to start taking notes going, how do I make it as a writer or as a...
So you went to college.
I did.
Would you consider that an important step in your journey of your art steps?
Yes.
Footsteps.
It was, but this goes back to for me because I really learned so much in college that some in the arts, but mostly about life, because I was so effed up before I went to college. And I went to a conservative Christian college called Point Loma Nazarene College in San Diego. So what's weird is how much of my life really is kind of who I became, which is a pretty eclectic guy. Like I'm kind of like F you to conformity, and I'm going to go my own way, and I'm going to pick the things that I really love, the things that I'm convinced are true, and I'm like a decorator crowd. I'm going to stick them to my shell and move along the ocean floor.
And have you always been the like the way that you are now? You're very opinionated and outspoken. Have you always been that way? Okay.
Yes. So
there was never a transformation that you went from like timid, quiet Doug to loudmouth Doug.
I was never timid. I was way more outcasty, self-hateful. So what I would consider what some people call shy, right?
Yeah.
I wasn't shy. I was quiet because I hated everybody and everything and didn't have confidence in myself, let's say. So some people would say I was so shy. I was so uncomfortable around others. My response to how I was uncomfortable around others was I would put on a show. So I would get really loud and real insulting and real bombastic because I didn't know. So, so when someone says, "Oh, you're shy," I actually think that person could be very well put together. And I might have been really psycho, way more lack of confidence than they are. But the outside made it look like I was the most confident person you know. So, you know what I mean? It's kind of my geeky way of responding to not being a jock was like, who cares? Like, I really had a real apathy toward other people, other people's feelings, other people's thoughts, other people's beliefs, because I'm kind of like, convince me and I'll change. Otherwise, shut the F up. I don't want to hear it, and I don't care. So that was true with the arts too, was I loved art. So unless someone could convince me why it was bad, and no one ever did, because obviously art can be a very good thing. It made sense to me, and I would dive into it. And that's where kind of my other attributes of like being borderline obsessive compulsive, being a workaholic started playing into affecting my character. So for instance, when I became a Christian, I don't just kind of lightly go, "Hey, I'm kind of a Christian." I'm very binary, bury the needle, dive right in. I'm reading apologetics. I'm reading the Bible like crazy. I'm praying night and day. So the only things I do half-assed are things I really don't care about or don't think are true. So like my porn viewing is half-assed.
Okay.
I barely look at it every year. I'm not that obsessive about it because I'm not convinced it's the good. Or getting drunk. I get drunk half-assed, maybe once a year or something. I'm not that obsessive. Even pipe smoking and cigar smoking, I'm very light about because I'm not convinced. So I'm not that psycho about it. So
I think it's an eternal truth.
Yeah. So, but the two biggest identifying factors to me of when I look in the mirror, I go, "You're an artist and you're a Christian." Like those are just absolute core. So did college play into that? Yeah. I went from a redneck town of Denair, population 2,500 in the San Joaquin Valley. It was all farmers. And I was the best artist, not only in that town, but perhaps in the county. So then you go to college.
Similar start for me.
Yeah. Then I go to college and I'm among the worst artists in the class, or just not skilled. You know, I'm a cartoony, I'm wacky, whatever. And that BS didn't purchase a lot in college. So art wise, I could only go up from where I came in because I was so ignorant of art.
Yeah.
But even taking bad art classes taught me a ton of stuff. That's not me recommending art, because I've been to enough modern art classes to know that 90% of them, they're poison and you should run away from them, and they'll be terrible for your mind and for even your art.
Yeah, I took some art classes at my local community college because I had a full ride scholarship, and they made me want to kill myself. I just despised them.
Full ride at the community college.
Yeah, because I wanted like an art contest.
Yeah,
because I was like you. I was the best artist in town generally, and except for me, I never did go to college. I mean, I went to those community college classes, and I hated them, so I quit. But I never wanted to go into debt for school as an artist. I felt like that was foolish. And so if I could get a scholarship or something to go to a good art school, then I started looking at art schools. I noticed that there's a lot of them that seem like they're geared towards the kid who suddenly decides at age 17, "Hey, I've always liked all those art guys," and then all that stuff they do, they draw. It's really cool.
I'm wacky.
So I think,
I'm deep. I'm deep.
My parents,
I wear black. I paint my fingernails black.
Yeah, my parents have lots of money. They could just pay for me to go start taking art classes, and I'll just learn it this year when I go to art school. So then the art schools are geared towards all these complete beginners who just suddenly decided that they're artsy, hippie, free spirits that have just started learning the very basics. So I started touring these art schools up in like the Portland, Oregon area, and I was looking at everything they had hanging on the walls showing what the students are doing, and I'm like, I feel like I could blow them all out of the water out of what I was seeing. It was just really... It felt like a racket, like they were just making money off of people thinking they were going to, I'm sure there was a few people out of these schools that maybe did something, but it seemed for the most part, they were just, they're making money off of these kind of whim feelings of I'll be an artist now that I'm out of high school.
And by the way, I did have that temperament going into college. I was very much made sure my hair was different from everybody else, tear up my clothes and wear shreds to be bad. You did that thing too where you tied the potato around your neck or something and wear it to school.
I shred my pants up in the
there is an art temperament that really is like my thoughts and feelings are badass, and just the public is going to be robbed if I can't express myself and bleed all over them this my brilliant emotions and creative thoughts. Just, I have this gift. I have to get this out. This is why God put me here. Like those are so dangerous and terrible and awful. and I do. And when I look around at art majors, I'm like, oh, they're a bunch of me's. They're a bunch of megalomaniacs.
Yeah. Even if one that's super liberal and would want nothing to do with Christianity, my heart goes out to those people. Like, I think that is who I was.
Yeah.
It's just, I do have a soft spot for people like that, even though I on the other side of my soft spot is I have a very low tolerance for them. But
yeah, I always rip on art majors because I am an art major. I'm a fine art major. The worst the worst major you can be in a school.
One of the worst human beings you can be.
I think even in philosophy, they expect you to read books. I mean, if you're an art major, you don't have to read in your major for like 4 years, maybe art history. And I got C's and D's in it. So I barely, the only thing empirical about art, I practically failed at, and I just made up for it in my personal exploration work of painting wacky things. But the biggest thing that college changed about me was I went in really pretty psycho, borderline suicidal, hated everybody. Really almost sociopath, I just felt so evil, and like a zero kind of evil, like mass shooter kind of evil. I would never do that, right? But because I am a human being, but I would never do that. But there was something really bent and bitter about me that in those 4 years in college left me forever. And it was, I got real male friends, like the best friends I ever knew, 8 guys, incredible Christian men, also, exploring their own, some were art majors, some were biologists, some were whatever. And then of course I met Angie my senior year, the beloved Miss TenNapel, who is the best person I've ever known and ever met. And just being around her makes me a better Christian. She is God's unmerited favor to me. That she got into my life is just, it was a bizarre turn. So my education, my friends, huge. My wife, the single biggest decision of my life, where I think my life would be absolutely terrible without her. I don't know how I'd get through it. And to have that foundation pretty much wrapped up by the time I'm 21, 22.
Yeah.
I got married when I was 23. The rest of life I felt very well educated and prepared to step into the life of a 23-year-old.
Yeah. Yeah. That's one weird thing for me, because I didn't have that. So it was a long, arduous travel for me, finding a wife and all that. It felt a lot slower. And I'm guessing, I don't know, out of college, did you immediately find a job in your field, or how did that work?
I had an internship my senior year at SeaWorld. So
okay, it was an internship. I just went to SeaWorld like last week.
Yeah, SeaWorld's
I was thinking about you.
What a hole! What a dump! Prison for animals. Here, animals. We're going to take a highly intelligent mammal. who has an eternity of an ocean to swim through, and we're going to put you in this tank, make you do tricks for fish. That would drive anyone mad. But the internship was kind of fake. Like they just brought me on because I was a student. They would give me assignments. I did some mural work, but I got to work with real professional artists, which I guess is what an internship's about. I just thought it would mean a job. They gave me a small job, but then it just didn't work out after a couple months. And I went into illustration and whatever. But my work life for the first year of marriage was pretty thin. I mean, I did Sunday school illustrations for I think $1.50 or $2 each. They give them to me 100 at a time, and I just churn these illustrations out, and they still print them.
So just odd jobs, like you just find odd jobs.
Yeah, I was an illustrator, odd job. Anyone who'd have me do a mural. I remember doing a mural that they paid me $2,000 for back in 1990, and that's what I paid for my honeymoon with. And I worked at a crystal gallery where I would sell kind of hand blown, really cool arts that were like made by scientists bending glass into these amazing things. I worked at that just as a salesman. So that's what's so weird is you can't see the future. So there's no way I would know that like within 2 years or 3 years, I'd create one of the biggest characters in video games of the 90s.
Yeah.
How could I know? Wild. And then a year and a half after that, I'd be brought under Steven Spielberg's wing, and he'd fund my own video game company where I got to hire 9 good friends, and we made puppet animation video games.
Yeah, how did that happen?
It was weird. What was weird is I was so close to my fine art side still, even then, like on Earthworm Jim and Neverhood, which were largely commercial projects. There's so much of the fine artist rebel still in me.
But how do you go from drawing Sunday school drawings and SeaWorld murals to where suddenly you're drawing Earthworm Jim for a video game company?
Sure. The Sunday school stuff was because my skill set was still so low, even coming out of college. I wasn't that good of an artist. I still wasn't up to par. And that was another problem that I saw flushed out at SeaWorld was I was doing murals with these amazing painters and old school vets, and I was just nowhere near. They had like the hand sign painters, Yeah. They would paint like ice cream. They would like freehand the lettering, and it was the most amazing. Like they could do detailing on cars and stuff. And I would just like, even still my text is so terrible. But the real skill came when in 91, I got a job on Attack of the Killer Tomatoes. That was my a year.
The animated TV show?
Yeah, the animated TV show. So that was a minimum wage job as an animator, just a sweatshop. But I was always fast. Like I'm really black and white again with my art, like real blunt, dive in, let's break some furniture, boom, throw down a line. So that works really well for animation when you're an extremer.
Yeah.
Drawing the big pose to pose shapes. And then on Saturday morning cartoons, they just needed you to churn out good enough stuff. And I started being able to pound out pretty usable work that I was the top frame count. I was by far the fastest, not the best, but the fastest, which in a way to TV was, oh, well, then you're also the best because you're the fastest. When they have that much work to do. And that was really when I started just by drawing animation. You have to pour out just so many frames a day that you're just drawing. And it's human anatomy. So I'm not doing monsters and stuff like that. I'm having to draw the hard stuff that I've always avoided. And I'm only so, like I'm still only like drawing at 50% as far as quality from what I see of quality. But I finally qualified for a job that required a little more skill than I had. And that was probably my big break in entertainment was probably Attack of the Killer Tomatoes. And it was just another weird freak show that another artist. So this is my big advice was I wouldn't turn down any work ever, including working for free. I always drew for my friends for free if they needed a logo, or maybe I'd charge them like $15 or just something small. It was all free. I considered myself still learning those first 5 or 6 years of my career that I didn't have a right to turn anything down.
Yeah.
So that was, and being a Christian didn't come into any of it because I was still allowed to be a Christian, as outspoken as I wanted, and people weren't, they were hostile to it. But, you know, anytime you're in the arts, but, you know, people were a lot friendlier, a lot more accepting.
So just culturally at the time, it was just not as hostile?
Not in the arts, not in animation. Just, you know, a lot of my friends were atheists and New Agers, just way more easygoing and cool. That's you. That's cool. Yeah, Doug's religious. That's him. Wow. Just no, all you people believe this stuff. That wasn't even around in the early 90s. The kind of the new atheist stuff. It hadn't been, I guess, because culturally, I guess we were still more religious, Christian religious coming out of the 80s and the moral majority stuff, that it was way more mainstream just to kind of be Christian nice and for people to, in general, know a lot about Christians.
Yeah, I think there's a generation that came up believing that the whole problem with all of society is these darn right-winger Christians and all their rules and all their judgment, and we're going to do something about it when we grow up. And I think that maybe the senior staff and the people that were your bosses probably weren't from that generation.
Right.
They're probably your generation and after.
Yeah. In fact, now you'll even hear it in the frickin' church. The church is like, you know, what's wrong with Christianity is our judgmentalism and our right-wing support of Trump. I'm like, BS. They're all, so now there's a whole bunch of the church has accepted the culture's anger at the offense of the exclusive Christ and the Old Testament God and all these things. Just, you have it in the church. We're so ashamed of certain things in the church. You know, we're ashamed of the exclusivity of Christ and all that. These are like normal mainstream things for 2,000 years. And now the church is in a crisis.
Yeah.
Like never before. So how about you? What was your first big thing as a man of faith? And did your faith play into it? And what was your first big leg in, your lucky break?
Yeah, it's really hard to say. And I feel like it was a really long haul for me. I mean, you know, even just, I felt like I was so far outside the industry. I lived in this small town. You know, Coos Bay area is like 20,000 people, but I lived in an outskirt of that called Lakeside, which I think is under 1,000. It's a tiny little, you know, place, which just is known because there's a lake there. And so I drew and I drew and I drew and I drew, and the internet had just started.
Yeah.
And so I decided one day I need to go to one of them comic conventions people are always talking about. And,
Because you wanted to be a comic artist?
Yeah. I had started out wanting to do animation. That's one thing that helped me. So what year was
that when that got in your head that you go, I want to be a comic artist?
High school was when I really got into comics. I think I had wanted to.
You were Ninja Turtle boy. Ninja Turtles.
Yeah, and I had never had the resources to do animation. Because back then it required a lot more. You know, you'd have to have a camera and all this stuff. And
yeah.
I just couldn't pull it off. So comics it was. I mean, I drew my first comics. I did a comic book that the local DARE program published for like all the schools in the area. The comic I did called The Drug Busters.
Yeah. But that's very good. That's a good little grab. So you weren't turning stuff down either. You were looking for any angle. I was
constantly, finding little odd jobs. I made like the cover of my local paper a few times, you know, I was always known as the local artist guy. And I always felt like, man, if I just finally went to one of these comic convention things, I could just show them my awesome work and they would hire me on the spot because I'm so good. And my first comic convention I went to was San Diego Comic-Con.
Oh, what year was that?
The year that you released Creature Tech.
2011? No, it was way before 2000. 2001.
Was it 2001? I remember there's one in
way
there.
Back there. 1 or 2? 2002. Because 2001, my daughter was born.
That sounds right, actually. Yeah, 2002.
In 2001. So 2002, the book would have released. So it's probably 2002.
Yeah, I was like in my early 20s.
And then we met.
Yep. And I happened to, the only reason I happened to go to your panel. I had no idea who you were. I had gone there, and the whole question of my life had been like I said in a previous podcast, from about ages like 17 to around 19, I didn't draw at all because I was in ministry, and I thought that my whole artistic pursuit had been a waste.
Probably true. Yeah. But
and then the talent was wasted, and the only way that I could really use it was if I was going to just draw Bible stories or something, and I didn't really feel called or led to do that. And it was actually I at one point I happened to meet this guy of all places in the locker room at the gym.
Oh dear! Is this going to be one of those stories?
Yeah, he had heard of my artwork, and he's like, "Hey, I'm an old animator. I used to work under Milt Kahl, and I have an animation studio just up the road here. And if you ever want to come check it out." And I'd always wanted to do animation. I'd always wanted to see, to do it, try it, see it. Like I'd only done all these flip books.
For those of you who don't know, Milt Kahl is considered probably the greatest animator to ever live. He did Shere Khan and Jungle Book. He was huge. So to work,
he was like a
him,
protege. Yeah, this guy like worked with him, like learned from him.
What was his name? Do you remember?
Roger Scott. This is his name.
Roger Scott.
He went on and did like Strawberry Shortcake and the Bee and the Honey Cheerio commercials and all this other stuff like that.
Okay, yeah, he was a commercial guy then. Okay.
Yeah. So anyway, I think he just kind of decided to retire out in Coos Bay and had this. He just turned his house into a studio with all these animation tables and stuff. And it was just for me.
Lots of old guys did that. Lots of them.
So for me, it was like a dream. I'm like, oh my gosh. So I went out there and he goes, I am, by the way, I showed him my flip books. He said, "You're natural talent in this." He said it was amazing. And he immediately handed me a job. He said, "If you want to animate this commercial, it's just this old lady saying, 'Stick it in your ear.'" And it's for a hearing aid commercial. And so, but the thing what happened there, because I had planned on not drawing, but this new thing had shown in my life that I'd always wanted to experience. It brought back all these old desires, But there's this guy there, this atheist. And so I started working on this thing because I just always wanted to see, can I really do this? Can I really animate the real way? Because I'd never really gotten to try.
Yeah.
And he was so, like, he would come in and work 8 hours a day, no pay. He just wanted to get good at animation. And he was older than me. And it infuriated him. He wasn't mean. It just frustrated him to see the ability that I had and what I could do.
Yeah.
And it seemed effortless. And I was sitting there acting like it wasn't a thing. I was like, I'm not going to do anything with this. I'm a minister. And so one day he really got upset, like frustrated with me. And he said, to do this work, it has to be the center of your life. And I gave the Christian answer and said, actually, Jesus Christ is the center of my life.
Jesus Christ is the center of my life.
And he goes, he goes, who do you believe, made you who you are? Like, you have talent I've never seen, like the way you draw, the way you do facial expressions. And he said, and you believe that God gave you this and that and that you're somehow honoring him by just wasting it and not using it at all. And like he was emotional. Like his response was so real and emotional. It made me feel so convicted. Like it was this wake up call, this crazy wake up call, like from an atheist.
Yeah. He's still a dick. I still hate him, but go ahead.
He's a good guy. I think he actually isn't an atheist anymore.
Oh, see?
In fact, when I talked to him, I think I thought he was an atheist at the time. I think he was more of an agnostic, but yeah.
Is he a Christian
He's very
now?
bitter towards the church. I think he's more of like a conspiracy theorist, kind of libertarian.
Looks like a Christian.
Faith kind of guy.
He's close.
He's like a right winger.
9/11 was pulled off by the Jews.
He was far left then, and now he's far right. He's a man of extremes. He's a character.
Okay.
Anyway, that did send me this.
Coos Bay. He's also dealing meth. Okay,
he like ran this strip. He was him and his brother like ran a strip club down there. It's just
gross.
Yeah, it's very gross.
I know. Is there anything worse than a Coos Bay strip joint?
No.
It's like that's the bottom of the barrel right there.
Yep, exactly.
It's like the Rosie
for
O'Donnell
me that
show.
I had just gotten back on the drawing horse. So I'm like, I have all this ability, and I need to look at what would I do with it? What am I going to do with it?
Maybe I am an art god.
So then I went ahead and I figured I had 2 jobs and I was saving up money to go to Comic-Con because for me it was a huge trip. I never had taken a trip like that before. And then I lost one of my main of my 2 jobs. I worked at a sign shop doing all kinds of graphics and stuff like that. I learned all sorts of programs there. just doing applying lettering. Yeah, Illustrator. I'd applied lettering to vans and built signs, print jobs, layout.
But look how much you learned.
Publishing. I learned a ton.
In your non-field job. Like it's technically art, but it's just like you took this job to pay rent and you ended up learning a ton.
Yep. Yeah, and I did like graphic design for a telescope company for a couple of years. It's really weird, doing catalog layout and all this stuff. And it's all stuff I taught myself.
They canned you.
The telescope company didn't can me. They stopped. They never really had that much actual work for me. It was more like I was kind of the owner's hobby. Whenever he wanted some art made, he could just walk over to me, sitting there at the desk waiting for something to do, and tell me, make something like this. But anyway, we can't get into every detail of my life here, but they put me on the assembly line. I told that story a while back when I got the chemicals in my ears from my earbuds.
Oh, yeah.
They gave me the same pay rate, but I was just on the assembly line making night vision lenses, which is the main way this company made money. Anyway, so I go.
It's good for all these artists to hear that, though, so they see what's in store. It's like, guys.
You take all these jobs, you never know how you're going to make it. Or what
you got to pay rent. You're not going to walk in. They're not going to say like, "Hey, will you direct this movie?"
Right.
Kid out of high school.
And I'm like, and I'm like 22, I think, 22, 23 when I make my trip to San Diego. And the way I got there is I was at the time renting a room from this guy who was a physical therapist. He had money because he was single, and he really believed in me. And when I lost that job, I had to use my money to pay rent that I had been saving to go to Comic-Con, and he paid my way. He just believed that I needed to go. So he said, "How much do you need?" Paid the bill for me.
So lucky break, some help along the way, kind people doing favors for, that's almost like a Patreon system where or your patron, it's patronage, where they're paying into your art goodness that allowed you to go to Comic-Con and meet me.
Yep. And that was definitely a pivotal moment for me. And because the question I was bringing to Comic-Con was, what is art and how do I combine art and faith? I have no idea. I don't know what to do with it, but I know that I hate to be Lady Gaga, but it feels like I was born this way. I'm an art. I don't know how to not be an artist, like I don't know how to not create. And I had been waiting in these long lines to show my horrible portfolio that I had. And this was me, like you said, when you went to college, suddenly you were like one of the worst one of the worst ones there. Well, I'm at San Diego Comic-Con, the biggest comic convention in the entire, possibly world. And, and there's amazing artists there. And I couldn't be worse. I mean, it's just like sudden wake up call.
I shrivel at Comic-Con.
Yeah.
I go there and I just go, ugh.
Yeah,
I'm terrible.
So it was a real wake up.
Yeah, it's always a wake up, but it's good. Mm-hmm. It's good to be exposed to the greats. Yep. It's good.
So all dejected and sad, I walked away and I got out my little pamphlet that shows you what's going on. What are the panels happening right now? And just because the name sounded interesting, Creature Tech, I thought I'd always liked Jim Henson, and I thought, I'd love to see some creature tech, like maybe some like animatronic animals or some kind of cool stuff like that. So I'll check this out. And I go in and there's just this tall, lanky guy sitting there talking about Jesus in his comic.
Yeah.
You kept going, it's not just a Christian comic, but there's just a lot of Christianity in it. So you keep talking about it. It was just you talking about your book.
Yeah.
And then I suddenly realized while I was there, like, oh, this is the guy that did Earthworm Jim. And I did like Earthworm Jim. I remember the Nintendo Power issue with it in there. I loved the, I would try drawing those characters.
Yeah. So what was the big deal? You walked away with someone who just showed you that it can be done. You can be a Christian.
Yeah, Creature Tech was pivotal for me because it didn't just show me, it showed me a few things. You worked your faith in a very genuine way that was your voice. It was just you being you, rather than you telling a Bible story the way that you think the church would want to hear it be told. Right. And I think that was very interesting to me. You didn't pull any punches in being unique. I mean, it's very, you went straight for the stuff you're good at, the quirkiness, and you threw in your giant praying mantis man and all your giant space eel and all that stuff. I thought that to make a nice holy comic book, I couldn't have that stuff in it. So that was big for me.
No creativity allowed. It has to be sandals and robes and sand.
Sandals and beards. Yeah. And then also that your style, I had always felt threatened by comics because of the Jim Lees and, all these amazing artists that did all this amazing detail. And I'd been trying to reach this pinnacle where I could compete with those guys. And when I saw that you were using this animator style and you were just kind of, you could tell the pages had been done quickly, but with energy, and they're still really fun to look at, but it was black and white.
Yeah.
It made me feel much more like, when I read it, I went, I could do this. Like I went, this is something I could pull this off. And it was a wake up for me.
And so I had a similar response when I saw Jeff Smith's Bone in the early 90s. I mean, by Bone, I mean his comic book. It was, he's obviously
it is an awkward title. It is a very awkward title.
Jeff Smith's Bone. He's obviously an animator and also puts the energy in. He's a lot more of a craftsman than I am.
He's really clean.
Still, it's clean.
It looks digital, but it's not. Yeah.
It's strength. It's quirky. It's wonderful. And I just thought, I can do it. By the way, Ninja Turtles was another one where it's not clean, but it has a grit, kind of a punk rock grit to it.
Yeah.
Same with Johnny the Homicidal Maniac. Vasquez says.
Yeah, John.
That looks like high school art, and it's like real funky punk rock where you just go, oh, I can do that.
Yeah, that's the stuff I grew up on. That's the weird thing. But I got this idea in my head that I think that I felt like I needed to break in and get a job doing comics, and then maybe I'd do my indie thing. And I think that was another thing I realized at Comic-Con. There's really two main paths into comics. You either make your Ninja Turtles, or you get really good at drawing and compete with the greatest artists in comics and get a job drawing.
Which is a lot hard. Yeah. Or you become Bernie Wrightson or Alex Ross.
Yeah, right.
Which you look at their work and I go, I got a long way to go.
Yep.
If I decided to do that, I go, maybe I'll be ready to do my first work when I'm 60. Those guys arrive when they're 22 and they're doing that.
Yeah.
Like when I'm 60, I'll be that good, I guess.
Yep. Well, I think there's a difference between there's artists that just, they enjoy making pieces of art and they don't, I think guys like us, we have stories we want to tell. I think there's artists that don't care as much about telling stories. They just want to create art. And so they're excited to sit there and put all their time into drawing a picture of a car. I want to get done with the car as soon as possible because it's just a prop in my story,
Yeah, I'm not that much of a craftsman.
I
love working a long time on this stuff. I love working hours and hours and doing a ton of work. I don't like spending all of my time on like one page.
Yeah.
Like I'm more about, I got to get this whole story out, the whole thing. Mm-hmm. And I'm only drawing this page as a step to that story. And the real great craftsmen, they're a little lighter on story. In general, I don't think any of them are that concerned with story. Same with the animators like Milt Kahl and stuff. I just think they're more about this frame in this sequence is going to be the best thing. And that's what I'm here to live and die for, and not the whole thing. So
how'd the Earthworm Jim guys find you? Was it just off of Tomatoes? You went from that to that was your next job?
No, from Tomatoes, I got into video games at Blue Sky Software. I was doing these like RPG games and stuff. It was a small video game company in San Diego that I just happened to luck out and get another minimum wage job, barely. And they're animating, 16 pixel animations. So how much craftsmanship is going to be involved in that, right? Suddenly my not being able to gesture draw a human figure didn't matter because you're drawing a 16 pixel 8-frame walk animation.
Wow.
Sometimes a 4-frame walk animation. So I'm really good at that. I'm just good at, and I was again the fastest guy there. I could just blow this stuff out and it was just, good enough. I was the best guy there. I didn't start looking really bad until the CD-ROM came out, when it can really hold higher resolution and a lot more frames. Then I started like not being up to snuff.
Oh, really?
Around that time. Yeah. So I was right there at the beginning of the video game movement. Money was just pouring out all over us. They couldn't get enough warm bodies to come in and animate 16 pixels. And because this is, the Sega Genesis was pulling in like $4 billion a year or something like that on their install base. They couldn't make enough cartridges. These little companies were popping up everywhere, including Shiny Entertainment, they left Virgin in 93 and they're looking for an animator. I was working at Blue Sky. I'd already done the Jurassic Park Genesis game, which I'm in I'm in full on leadership within a year of video games.
Is that where you had some Steven Spielberg interaction?
I didn't have any interaction with him. I actually got to go to the set, and I got to go into his the workplace where they actually were making Jurassic Park. Like I went to the guy doing storyboards on Jurassic Park.
This is like Jurassic Park 2 or 3 or 1.
This is 1.
Oh, wow.
This is before the movie came out. The year before the movie came out, we were working on the game. I got to go to Universal Amblin, where the guy was doing the animation, the storyboards, and there's Steven Spielberg's little Post-it notes with little stickmen on it telling him where to put the camera. So that was close to greatness. I did get to meet Stan Winston, and I did get to meet Phil Tippett, who was my all-time puppet animation hero. He did the checkerboard scene in Star Wars and the AT-ATs animation and the Tauntauns. Yeah. So getting to be exposed to my heroes. It wasn't until after Earthworm Jim. It was Earthworm Jim that put me on Katzenberg and Spielberg's radar.
Okay.
And I actually became decent friends with Katzenberg. Spielberg I met a couple times, and we were kindred spirits. But it was really more. I've pitched far more to Katzenberg than to Spielberg.
Katzenberg's a DreamWorks guy. Yeah. Well, I guess they both founded DreamWorks, right?
Yeah. Yep. So that's also kind of my. There was a lot of opportunism in me where I'm able to, if someone opens a door a little crack, I can weasel my way in. There has to be God or fate or luck or whatever you want to call it has to open that door a little tiny crack, which might be like the guy that gave you the money to send you down to Comic-Con.
Yeah.
So I could be the greatest. There's far greater artists than me that either aren't looking for those cracks or those cracks didn't open for them and they remain not as known or as have as many opportunities as me.
Yeah, for me,
I do. So my aggression is definitely in there pushing.
Yeah, constantly making stuff, never stopping,
but also looking outside of my studio to other people when I need it. Like I'm very social. I always know a lot of people, and I'm in contact with a lot of people. A lot of that became my thing.
Sorry, go ahead.
Well, that a little bit more plays into my personality type, which is that because I'm so self-crushed and have a low image of myself that I never mind self-deprecating humor, that I find it very easy to kind of start up conversations with people, and I don't care what people think because if they reject me, I assume I'm already rejected anyway. So what do I have to lose? So screw you. So there's kind of some of that going on where I'm really open to talking to other people. I'm really fascinated by other people, what makes them tick. And I'm also not afraid of being vulnerable to strangers like you at Comic-Con. Yeah. Really like eviscerating myself and opening up never bothered me because I just never thought, I just assumed people thought worse of me than I already think of myself. So what's to lose?
Yeah. I forgot what I was going to say. I had something
on Katzenberg and Spielberg, or let's go to your next step. It's your turn.
Yeah, my next step. Let's go there.
So you've gone to Comic-Con. How long after 2002 did you start doing Chumblespuzz? Because that was
I think that's what I was going to get to, because I had a book called The Weevil, which I had spent like 2 or 3 years on, which is a book that nobody will ever read, or it was I
could barely read it.
It's almost unreadable. It was I tried so hard to over detail every page, spent forever on it.
Super creative. It was clearly super creative.
But yeah, and that's one thing that a lot of artists need to learn, like get that one first project done so you can move on to the next one. So Chumblespuzz was my next one. I originally wanted to animate it, but the file that I had spent over a month animating corrupted. I was animating it digitally, my first digital thing I'd ever done, and like drawing digitally. And I was using a Wacom, not where you can see the screen, but like Intuos, where you're just drawing. You're looking at the screen, but drawing down on your lap, And so I decided to make it a comic instead, and I went, you know what? I bet I could draw a comic digitally, because I had been drawing these Flash cartoons, and I didn't quite like how it looked, but I thought that if I took a little more time, that was my first time I tried out manga studio because I've been hearing that it had a good line on there. So
yeah, and it looked really good. I remember Chumble Spuzz looking super mainstream, really appealing, really funny. Like it is well drawn for your first book. You know, the public sees.
Yeah,
you walk it into slave labor graphics.
Yeah, slave labor graphics who did Johnny the Homicidal Maniac, and I had been a fan of theirs all through high school. So I brought my book to them, and it was like, I mean, it was like night and day. Like suddenly I had a project, and it was obvious from the look on his face from the moment he saw it that he wanted to publish it.
Yeah, and everyone liked it.
Yeah, it did. I mean, it didn't sell great, but I got that was another big moment for me.
What year was that?
Oh man, I think it was probably around 2005 or 6. I think I was around 25 when that came out.
That was amazing because didn't you get an Eisner nomination?
I did, and because I did 2 books, I did volume 1 and 2. And
so that's the highest comic accolade you can get. On your first comic, you get nominated for an Eisner.
Yeah, well, yeah, if you count it as my first, since the Weevil doesn't count.
Weevil doesn't count. I'm talking about the first big.
Yeah, first one that actually got people actually read. Kind of, it got great reviews. Didn't get read a lot, but another big thing that happened for me was that because I was a big fan of Jonah Vasquez and his stuff, and he happened to sneak Chumble Spuzz. He went home, and like a few months after Comic-Con, he had read both of them, and he wrote like a novel of a review. He just wrote this, you know, he loved it. He wrote this amazing review saying how it was hilarious, and in his voice, his hilarious voice, and that was huge. I'm sure you've had those moments.
Movie Invader Zim is now on Netflix.
Yep, just came. The new Invader Zim movies on Netflix. Check that out. So yeah, that was a huge moment, and then that opened me up to have Cartoon Network, places like that would come to the tables at comic conventions and say like, "You guys got anything new?" And then, you know, Dan, who is the guy who runs SLG, it's like, "We got this new guy Ethan over here, is really funny and creative," and he handed him a Chumble Spuzz, and that's how I started pitching to Cartoon Network. So I got my first cartoon optioned by them. It was actually my second.
Brian Jones or Curtis Lee Lash?
Brian Jones, our guy Brian. He was brand new under Tram, who's the guy who did like Ben 10 and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it was the second pitch I'd ever pitched. I pitched my first pitch and worked really hard on it and thought, oh, they're not going to accept anything until I get like at least 30 of these things sent out and maybe one day. So I just started cranking out ideas, and this is my second one. It got options. So that was what got me to move down to LA, where you had been telling me for a while to move to LA, and we've been in contact because I'd been on your forum so much. I was part of your little group. So anyway, I mean, I guess that kind of sets the stage for how we both kind of. The weird thing about my story is that I did all that, and then my big success almost had nothing to do with any of it. Axe Cop was this crazy side bonus thing that I was just goofing off.
So you've already had 2 hits at the big piñata, though, the Fame piñata. So
really,
you've had 2 hits at it, like with Chumble Spuzz and now Axe Cop, because you're hitting it and hitting it and hitting it, and you're being prolific and getting stuff picked up at Cartoon Network. So I'm only saying. The start of this whole show was about how does a Christian get in, you know, what are the first steps? Because after that, from that point on, you're the Axe Cop guy. Mm-hmm. It's it's an animated show on Fox. It's national. Yeah. You're friends with Nick Offerman, and you meet Patton Oswalt's doing voices for you, and big time. Your household name at Cartoon Network and at Fox. I mean, I could never even land a show at Fox. And I've pitched with Patricia Heaton. We brought a show in, and I couldn't land one. Yeah,
I've still never landed. I mean, I've gotten a few optioned, but I've never. Axe Cop we didn't even pitch it. They just said, we want to make this show. And they just made it. So, because of the comic.
Yeah, that was kind of the way the Earthworm Jim pitch went too back in the day at Universal. I just kind of walked it in, and Sid Sheinberg goes, "Yep, we'll take 13 of those episodes of this." It was the easiest thing. You walk it in.
Oh, because the game was already popular.
Well, it was done, but they didn't know how popular it would be.
Oh, okay. The game wasn't
when
out
they
yet.
picked up. It was more just that it was all just tight and ready, and all the
ready to
partners
go.
were-
Yeah.
Playmates had committed to doing a toy line if Universal did an animated series, and
Oh, wow.
they were already doing a game, so they all just said yeah, and then blah,
That was like how things are done back then, right? Like, it all kind of got launched by like He-Man and G.I. Joe and all those things. The toy line and the show and everything would all kind of come out. It was
cross product. It was very crass and just kind of everybody do it, pile on, let's go, and they just do it.
Huh.
And it was great. That's back. It was actually effective. Nowadays they go like, we're going to cross market this animated series with a video game. They act like it's like a new thing. I'm like, they've been doing that since they put G.I. Joe on a cereal box. Okay.
So what did you ever feel like at a point your faith, I don't know if conflicted with your job is the right way to put it, or became an issue? I'm trying to think of the right way to put that.
It only wasn't in that because I dealt in children's material in general. Mm-hmm. And I don't mean Creature Tech obviously isn't a children's thing. It's got cuss words in it and violence and stuff, but because it was kind of youth oriented, they were never trying to make me do like, anti-Christian or blasphemous or foul things. And most of us Christians have been so scarred and tainted and fouled by culture that we don't even have the option of being Mennonites anymore, of being like this puritanical. I don't cuss. I don't have a TV in the house. My whole neighborhood all believe like me. No, I don't know of any Christians that live that way anymore. And that's what they mean by culture is post-Christian now. Mm-hmm. So what would it take for them to compromise my values? And I really see the art that I do as being much more of a job. Like, we got married in 90, started having kids in 2001. Mm-hmm. And suddenly it very much became, how do I shake money out of this job to pay for my family? Yeah. Was the most Christian thing about the work. It wasn't that the work itself was like, is this telling Bible stories? Because at that point, I just felt like making anything remotely good was good enough. And then stuff that's remotely good was highly profitable. So it paid for my family, and that was good enough. Mm-hmm. So, and it was never even on my radar to think of making true good and beautiful stuff that would transcend culture. Yeah. That came later. And that's when I really kind of bifurcated everything and went like, culture's so far off from that. It's, I don't even know how to start a media company that would even care about truth, goodness, and beauty. Because culture is just so obsessed with shock value, the low. That's the kind of thing that the masses pay for. What is it that is holy that everyone is paying for? I mean, maybe Passion of Christ broke through to that, and it was still had to be a bloodbath to really hit culture. Everything else is seen as kind of bland. Duck Dynasty is a mass media thing, and it's basically a bunch of pop culture rednecks talking about farting while making duck calls. So I just I think instead what we see are the holy stories of the people behind the work. Like I found out like, James Caviezel or whatever is a great Christian man. And you find out, I'm trying to think of like the Duck Dynasty guys. Phil Robertson is like a great pastor and very serious about his faith and Bible thumpy. That I really dig that. So we have more exposure to the behind the scenes personal lives of people. That it's easier to find out about Christians. A little bit from Glenn Keane, the world's greatest living animator, is a churchy Christian guy. You find out about my faith. You find out now. So it's more the personal testimony than the actual work itself, because I just think our culture is so illiterate and trashy what we watch. You see guys at my church are talking about, have you seen Game of Thrones and Walking Dead? Exactly like the Atheist Club. And outside of that, there's, I guess, Christian music and Fireproof.
Yeah. I think it's more just the atmosphere of, which, I didn't ever really, only on Axe Cop did I ever really feel like I was working among people who I really couldn't be myself around at all. Like I really kind of had to just kind of hide. And that's when I'm already kind of shy and quiet. I was really shy and quiet, which I feel like sabotaged my chances at ever working with anybody, recommending me for another job. And, really a lot of people get a break like that where they get a TV show based on their thing. And that leads to bigger things. I feel like in Axe Cop, I felt so, I was just so shy that I just didn't, I didn't build any bridges outward from that.
Yeah.
But it was just, for me, I just kind of, it was a culture shock. And I just didn't know how to handle it. I was like, so I'd just be quiet. And then that's how I am. I'm not good at BSing. I'm not good at just talking if I don't care about the topic or whatever.
Yeah.
And you got to be good at that in Hollywood.
I'm good at that.
Yeah, you're good at that.
My eyes are still glazed as I'm hearing the other person's story, and I'm sitting there eviscerating them in my mind, going, "Really? Do we have to talk about your car's paint job and how long it took to blah 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 blah?" But usually, you do find really cool people. Many of them, my employers are often atheists. They're really nice, cool people who I've gotten to work with. They're not like the psycho. Or they may be psycho leftists on Twitter, but they're not in real life. They're just far more, hey, how's it going? How's the family? And, you're a man of faith, and I know that's what you believe. And, they're way more people are way more cool about it. And it's just the psychos with the biggest mouth are the ones that are shouting that we see all the time. Cause they just diarrhea this stuff all day.
Well, that was part of it. My first exposure to really working with people in Hollywood was a very liberal writer's room. and how did you feel about that? It was awkward because whatever was in the news, they'd always talk about it, and it would almost always be the opposite of what I thought. But
that's true. That's true for me.
I didn't want to target myself. I was brand new. I was excited for this opportunity to have a TV show and to be in favor of these people and to have, I just wanted to focus on the art. I didn't want to I was scared,
Yeah. So you never gave him the I'm a Christian guy? Yeah, I'm a Christian.
It once got exposed by, it was funny because I was sitting there and everybody's joking. We're working on the story, and then suddenly out of nowhere, the guy who's one of the head writers, I think he might have been the showrunner. I can't remember they never really specified who was, but he goes, "Hey, Ethan, I noticed you don't cuss." I'm like,
and you go,
yeah, not
that's
that much.
Because of the Lord Jesus Christ.
No, he goes, I just thought that was interesting. I go, yeah, I don't cuss that much. He goes, you religious? I'm like, yeah.
Oh.
He goes, you Christian? I'm like, yeah. He goes, you go to church and stuff? I'm like, yeah. He's like, good for you. And it goes really quiet. And they just kept going. And I was like, now they know it's out.
Yeah.
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 But
I don't. It's just so sad. It's just awful.
Yeah.
They're stupid.
I mean, they weren't mean about it, but they just kind of it just felt like things kind of iced over. I don't know. Who knows?
They know they can't.
And I always wonder how much
they know they can't have a good time with you now. With you in the room.
I'm the weird guy. Oh, then there was a second time. This is one of the worst. I worked late one night. I was actually writing Axe Cop commercials with Maria Bamford. I don't know if you guys she's like a stand-up comedian. And because I worked late, my car was parked somewhere that needed to be moved. And I had been listening to Dennis Prager on the way into work that morning on the AM radio station. So my car was still on AM radio. And
answer.
So the guy, answer. Yeah, it's the words. Yeah, it's total like right-wing news.
Sean Hannity thinks
and the guys in the evening, I hate the worst. Like they had who's the worst guy on there?
All of them. Gallagher.
Yep, Gallagher is him. Is right at the time. Gallagher.
He's always been our most.
I hate him, man.
My dogs, my babies, these babies.
So the guy, I didn't realize after he did it. The assistant to my boss borrowed my keys, went out and moved my car, and I realized that when he got in there, he turned on my car and Mike Gallagher was on. And then I know nobody said anything, but I'm sure it was just, I know I know that when that went around.
These environmentalists are going to kill us all.
Yeah, that sounds just like him.
We got to put him in jail or do something about him.
Oh, man, it's the worst. Oh,
could have been Michael Savage.
No, yeah, that'd be bad, but no. Yeah, it's Gallagher. Anyway, well,
okay, next
we've
subject.
gone quite long. We got to our next subject.
Aren't we out of time yet?
We are really out of time. Do you want to try the next subject, or we should just say goodbye?
I got stuff to do, but let's go ahead and do another. Let's do a quickie of the next subject, just in case it shakes something good out. And if it doesn't, then we'll say goodbye.
All right, you can introduce because it was your idea. This is our department.
Part of why we do the audio mullet is it is a tribute to things that have gone out of style, like particularly our values. But, maybe we want to hold on to them a little longer. So the mullet's out of style, but, it looked kind of futuristic. And maybe there's still a little more flock of seagulls for men to. So let's defend the mullet. Well, one of the things that Chesterton always said is he was obviously a conservative, but he had things to say about conservatism too, that he'd say, liberals was kind of about moving on from many of the truths that we really should hold on to. And then if there's a fault of conservatives, it's that we often hold on to things that we really ought to move on from.
Yeah. There's one thing, a guy named Michael Malice that we had on the Babylon Bee podcast. I'd love to get him on here. He's an anarchist, but he says, I love this quote, that conservatism is progressivism going the speed limit.
Huh. That almost makes sense.
It almost
I'll figure
makes
it
sense.
out.
I mean,
if he's an anarchist, I'd love to have him come on our show just to pull his pants down and talk about what a complete imbecile
He'd love
is.
it.
So
he'd love it.
Good.
Yeah.
And I think I've heard him on other Ricochet podcasts already.
Probably have. He's been all about the stuff.
He's written a book, right? Isn't he? Mm-hmm. Yeah, he wrote a big book.
Yeah, he just had a book come out, The New Right, yeah.
Yeah. I heard this guy. He has a lot of great thoughts other than the anarchy thing. And he's like, I won't even argue it. I just say, whatever. I'm like, shut up.
We'll get him on. He said he wanted to come on, so.
Get him on. Mm-hmm. Anarchist. I'm not smart enough even to debate him, but I can call him names like stupid.
Yeah.
Good.
Perfect.
So what are some values, or not just values, but what are some things, this can be fashion things or this can be value things, that your mom and dad or grandma and grandpa held on to that you're really glad we've moved on from, or we ought to move on from?
Okay.
There. So what it's kind of like what is mullets are cool. So we're not going to talk about moving on from those, but things like, say bell bottoms. It's great that we moved on from bell bottoms. Definitely. Thank God that we dumped the bell bottoms. What are some other things? Like dad telling end jokes.
Yeah.
We're kind of glad we moved on from those. What else?
Yeah. Man, disco for sure.
Disco. What do you have against KC and the Sunshine Band?
I don't know, actually. I guess compared to modern music, I probably would mind disco as much, but
disco or hip hop.
I don't really care for it. Yeah,
disco or hip hop.
I guess I'd rather listen to. I'd rather die.
Disco or shoegaze, emo?
Disco.
Disco or industrial?
Disco.
I can't think of anything worse than disco to compare it to other than those categories are my least favorite categories.
At least disco was kind of happy.
Yeah, I know, man. They were dancing on roller skates. They'd ride around on a dance floor on roller skates with big lights and smoke machines, and they had their bell bottoms and their fringes all hanging down. Everyone was just completely jacked up on coke. They were having a good time. Disco. And it was all about like just dancing and making love.
And pointing them in the air and then down on the floor a bunch.
Pointing a finger up in the air a lot. What a harmless, that's like The Fly. How harmless is that dance? So disco, you're happy that we moved on from.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm trying here. I'm trying to think of stuff. I'm so old fashioned, I can't throw anything out. Except, there's the obvious things. Slavery.
But that's not, I'm talking about mom and dad. I don't want to go all the way back.
Well, it's crazy how the liberals it's not that far back, though. It's not that far.
You have to go back to the beginning
Jim Crow
of man
and stuff. This is
to make your woke point.
The obvious stuff, the KKK being big, Jim Crow, all that stuff. Like, listen, we're just going to say that's all obvious. We're not.
They're like, I'm not conservative, Because I'm not for the KKK. How about that? I'm like, actually, that was Democrats.
Yeah, that was the Democrats.
Every bad idea. Fascists. Okay. Shag carpet.
I think shag carpet, yeah.
Jell-O molds.
It's disgusting.
It's good we got away from all those Jell-O casseroles. That's the big thing, is like the 60s and 70s, kind of the Mad Men era. Ham casseroles and stuff were big. Glad we moved on from those.
I do like marshmallows on your sweet potatoes, though. Or yams.
Nah.
People,
Grandma always pulled out I love a Waldorf salad.
Is that what it's called?
It's Jell-O with cottage cheese and walnuts on it. I'm like, what the what?
That's a salad?
That's a Waldorf salad. Grandma would go, I just love it, Dougie. I love a give me a big piece of that Waldorf salad. It's cottage cheese. Jell-O with walnuts.
Wow. Yeah, I don't think I ever had that.
What about mincemeat pies? Give me some of that mince.
Never had any of that either. Sounds gross.
Turkey. Would you have tuna casserole?
Yeah, we did some tuna casserole.
Do you still has Miss Jessica, the lovely Mrs. Nicolle, ever made a tuna casserole for you?
I do almost all the cooking in our house. She is into shepherd's pie. She does
I like shepherd's pie. We like that.
She also makes a killer taco casserole.
Oh, that sounds good too.
Yeah, it's like tacos in the shape of casserole.
What about a Salisbury Steak TV dinner? That's a big early 70s. We used to sit around and watch Archie Bunker. We bring out the TV trays.
TV trays, yeah.
These Mad Men TV trays, and put the Salisbury steak, separate it out, one slab with the potato on the side and the little wrinkled up peas, and sometimes a middle area for a dessert, which was a brownie or soggy apple pie. But usually we didn't get the dessert ones. But Salisbury steak, that was good.
Yeah, I actually do like the Salisbury steak. I've always had a soft spot. I don't think I've had it for a long time. I used to work at a big buffet, and they had Salisbury steak there. It was good.
Is it like a pounded steak, or is it like hamburger?
I don't know. Ours was like frozen, I think, and then we cook it. It was real cheap trucker food that we did there. It was more about quantity over quality.
We got to crack the Salisbury steak formula and maybe try to make our own.
I was like the chicken fried steak.
Oh yeah. Was there a TV dinner of that though? That's just a breakfast.
It's a good breakfast. It's a massive.
I like
pounded steak with covered in fried and breading, getting gravy.
Chicken fried steak is so good at Denny's or Cracker Barrel or something.
Yeah.
Oh, so good. Very heart attacky, very regrettable meal when you're done. Okay, let's wrap it.
I do remember they thought bread was good for you. Remember that?
Yeah, don't forget to eat your bread.
I'd consider myself dieting, and I would eat entire loaves of French bread. I'm like, all right, I gotta limit myself here. I'm just gonna eat a loaf of French bread instead of any meat.
Yeah, that went all the way. That's 70s all the way through the 80s. That inverted pyramid. They're like, don't forget to eat 6 servings of pasta a day.
Yep.
Get your pasta in, but don't eat so much meat. Not so much steak and eggs. And doctors used to recommend cigarettes, so that's the same thing.
Well, so in general, they were right about most things, except for the big stuff.
All right, we're going to wrap this up before our energy goes below. We're already at 0.
Yeah, we're running out.
Negative category. We need an editor. We need an editor. He could just chop this thing up into the most brilliant 15 minutes.
So much work. We don't want all that.
Well, this has been the Audio Mullet. I'd like to thank my buddy Ethan for laying down 2 of these shows today. And
they don't know that.
Fun. Yeah, I know. But I'm telling them now to reveal the ugly underbelly.
That's why we sound more tired than we should.
How we make the audio sausage.
Yep.
This has been the Audio Mullet. You guys have a great week, and don't forget to not eschew everything from the previous generation. Let's just embrace some of it, and then where there's the disco in the past, we'll get over that. When are we going to get over this ecology crap? All the cleaning up and recycling. I had those bumper stickers when I was a kid. This has been Audio Mullet.
Bye, everybody.
Audio Mullet, a mullet of audio smashing you in.